Okay, so today we're going to dive into something that's, well, it's going to sound like we're stepping right into a sci-fi movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of technology that can, like, practically see through walls and pinpoint danger from, like, really far away?
Hmm. That's that's a pretty bold claim, I gotta say. But yeah, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, it's not science fiction. It's actually real, and it's being developed by this brilliant guy, Randall Peterson, who is both an Air Force engineer and an MIT PhD candidate.
Wow, that's quite the combination.
Right. Talk about a high achiever.
Yeah. So what exactly is he working on that's uh so sci-fi sounding?
So to really get the why behind this whole thing, you got to picture the problem he's trying to solve. Okay, imagine a bombed airfield, like total chaos, debris everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you so far.
Now imagine that you have to assess that damage, which means someone has to physically walk through that site looking for things like unexploded ordnance.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's incredibly dangerous.
Incredibly dangerous, right? It takes forever. And honestly, it feels kind of outdated, in this day and age with all the technology we have.
Yeah. You would think we'd have a better way to do that by now.
Exactly. And that's exactly what Peterson thought, too. He actually experienced this firsthand during an airfield assessment training exercise.
Oh, wow. So he was actually out there in the field.
Yeah, he was out there in full chemical gear walking through the site, and that's when he had this like light bulb moment.
Like he realized how dangerous and inefficient it was.
Yeah, he was like, there has to be a safer and more efficient way to do this, and that experience was what really kicked off his research.
Makes sense. So how did he approach this problem?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. He started using something called hyperspectral imaging, and it's basically like giving drones superhuman vision.
Okay, now you're really piquing my curiosity.
Yeah.
Hyperspectral imaging. What is that exactly?
So imagine taking a picture, but instead of capturing just the colors we can see, this camera captures hundreds of colors,
Yeah.
way beyond what the human eye can see.
Hmm. Okay, I'm trying to visualize this.
It lets you see these tiny differences in the materials being scanned, revealing information that's normally hidden.
So instead of just seeing a pile of rubble, you could actually tell what each piece is made of.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Peterson is combining this hyperspectral imaging with artificial intelligence. So he's essentially teaching drones to tell the difference between harmless debris and something dangerous like a bomb.
Wait, hold on. How do you teach a drone to recognize danger? It's not like you can just point and say, that's a bomb.
Right, that's where machine learning comes in. He's feeding this AI tons of data, hyperspectral images of all kinds of materials labeled as either safe or dangerous.
So the AI learns by example.
Exactly. Over time, it starts to recognize patterns and it can make judgments with incredible accuracy.
Wow. So it's like showing a kid flashcards over and over again until they can identify the objects on their own.
It's like that, yeah, except in this case, it's a drone learning to identify potential threats.
That is just wild. And you said this has applications beyond just airfield, right?
Oh, absolutely. This technology could be used for so many things, like searching for landmines in war zones, assessing structural damage after an earthquake, or even pinpointing diseased crops in a huge field.
So this one aha moment on a bombed airfield could end up having a huge impact on all sorts of fields.
It really shows how powerful individual ingenuity can be and how important it is to create an environment where those innovative ideas can actually take root and grow.
It's pretty amazing to think about.
Right. It's like this Air Force engineer turned MIT PhD candidate is developing real-life superpowers for drones. It's straight out of a comic book.
It sounds like he has the perfect background for it. So did he always know he wanted to work in this kind of field?
Well, actually, he didn't come from a traditional military background at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what led him to the Air Force Academy then?
He was drawn to their approach to education, which was very multifaceted. He actually studied civil engineering, then he got into computer programming, and then he started working with these Air Force labs, and that's kind of where his path toward this airfield problem began.
Interesting. So it wasn't a straight line to this research. It was more like a winding path.
Yeah, exactly. And then he ended up at MIT, which is like the perfect place for someone with his innovative spirit. It's like all roads led him to this research.
MIT. Yeah, that makes sense. They're always pushing the boundaries of technology there.
So I was looking into the evolution of his work, how he started out focusing on pavement wear and tear, which seems like a pretty standard civil engineering thing.
Yeah, what's the connection to detecting unexploded ordnance and assessing damage, like in attack scenarios?
Well, the link is data analysis. You see, he was using sensor data to assess normal pavement wear and tear.
Okay, so that experience gave him the foundation for tackling this much more complex challenge.
Exactly. He learned how to analyze data from all sorts of different sensors to detect those hidden threats and damage.
So he took his expertise in one type of data and applied it to a whole different problem with much higher stakes.
Right, and that's really impressive, but the real breakthrough is when he brought deep learning into the picture.
Deep learning. I've heard that term, but I'm not really sure what it means in this context.
So imagine you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. Deep learning is like having this superpower magnet that can sift through all that hay and find the needle right away. It's all about training algorithms to see patterns in massive amounts of data, even patterns that we might not be able to see.
So the needle is like the unexploded ordnance or the hidden damage, and the haystack is all that sensor data.
Exactly. It's like giving the drones this sixth sense, the ability to see beyond what's right there on the surface.
That's incredible. So it's not just about seeing more colors, it's about making sense of that data and using it to make really important decisions on the fly.
Precisely, and that's what makes this technology so groundbreaking. So you see, Peterson's research has gone from assessing ordinary pavement to developing a system that could potentially save lives in really dangerous situations.
It's a remarkable journey for sure. And it just goes to show you how technology can completely change the way we approach these tough challenges, not just in the military, but in tons of other fields too.
It's really amazing to think about all the possibilities. So we've talked about airfields, but where else could we use this hyperspectral X-ray vision?
You know, that's the really exciting part. The potential applications are almost limitless. Like think about disaster relief, after an earthquake or a hurricane. Imagine drones with this technology flying over the affected area.
Oh yeah, they could identify like unstable structures that are about to collapse, right?
Exactly. That would be so important for keeping first responders safe.
Yeah.
And they could even find survivors trapped under rubble. Give rescue teams a much clearer idea of where to focus their efforts.
Wow. So in those crucial first few hours after a disaster, this technology could really save lives.
It really could.
Oh.
And because those drones can operate from a safe distance, we could send them into places that are too dangerous for people to go right away.
Yeah, that would definitely reduce the risks for rescue workers and probably save more lives, too. This also makes me think about all those landmines, scattered across war-torn countries.
Oh, absolutely. Hyperspectral imaging could be a game changer for clearing those landmines. It could speed up the process so much, allowing people to rebuild their communities without that constant fear.
So from military uses to disaster relief and even humanitarian work, this technology could make a real difference in some of the toughest situations out there.
Yeah, it really could.
Is it?
And it doesn't stop there.
Oh.
Let's think about agriculture for a second.
Yeah.
Imagine a farmer trying to manage a massive field of crops.
Yeah.
Right now, figuring out which areas are affected by pests or disease can take forever.
And a lot of times by the time you see the problem, it's already spread a lot.
Exactly. But with hyperspectral imaging, you could have drones constantly monitoring the fields, detecting those subtle signs of stress or disease in individual plants.
So instead of just spraying the whole field with pesticides, farmers could target the treatment exactly where it's needed.
Precisely. That would save farmers money, reduce the use of those harmful chemicals, and lead to more sustainable farming practices.
It's a win-win situation for sure. I'm seeing a pattern here. This technology seems to be all about making things more efficient, more targeted, and more intelligent.
You got it. It's all about using data to make smarter decisions, whether it's about where to send rescue teams, how to clear landmines, or how to manage our farms.
It's like we're entering a new era of understanding where we can literally see the world in a whole new light.
It is pretty amazing to think about. What about using it to monitor deforestation in the Amazon rainforest, tracking the spread of illegal logging as it happens?
Or how about using it to find leaks in oil pipelines before they turn into major environmental disasters? The possibilities are mind-blowing.
They really are. And that's what's so great about innovation. It leads to even more unexpected discoveries and applications. It's like a ripple effect that can touch so many parts of our lives.
And to think it all started with one person wanting to find a safer way to assess bombed airfields. Talk about the power of one person's idea.
It just goes to show how important it is to invest in research and development. Support those people who are pushing the limits of what's possible. We never know where that next breakthrough will come from.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most groundbreaking solutions come from people who aren't afraid to question how things are done and ask, what if there's a better way?
Yeah, that spirit of curiosity and innovation is what drives progress and helps us understand the world around us better.
So we've explored all this incredible potential of hyperspectral imaging and its applications in all these different fields. But I want to circle back to the guy behind it all. You mentioned earlier that Randall Peterson didn't have that traditional military background.
Right. He didn't.
So how did he end up taking on this specific challenge?
That's one of the most interesting things about him. He didn't grow up surrounded by military technology. It was his curiosity and his passion for solving tough problems that drew him to this.
He saw a problem, a challenge, and he decided to dedicate himself to finding a solution.
Exactly. And his journey from civil engineering to computer programming and then MIT says a lot about how driven he is and how he can connect these different areas of knowledge.
It's a perfect example of how thinking across disciplines can lead to really groundbreaking innovations. He's
Wow.
not just an engineer or a programmer, he's a problem solver who blends all these different skills to create something amazing.
And his story reminds us that innovation can come from anyone, anywhere. It doesn't matter what your background is or what you studied. It's about having that curious mind, being willing to learn, and wanting to make a difference.
So let's finish up our deep dive into Randall Peterson's amazing work with a question for you, our listener. We've talked about how we could use this tech for all sorts of things like airfields, disaster relief, even agriculture. But I'm kind of curious, where else do you think this hyperspectral X-ray vision could be helpful? What other problems could it help us solve?
Well, that's a great question, and one I hope gets everyone listening thinking. The really cool thing about a technology like this is that it opens up a whole world of possibilities.
So let's think about some of those big challenges facing us today, like
Climate change, for example, that's a huge one with so many different issues tied to it. Could we use this to monitor deforestation patterns in a really precise way, helping us understand and maybe even reverse the loss of those important ecosystems?
That's a really good point. We could track endangered species, see which areas are most vulnerable to climate change, even monitor the health of coral reefs.
Exactly. And how about our infrastructure? Bridges, pipelines, power lines. Imagine using this tech to inspect those things and spot weaknesses or damage before they cause a major problem.
It could completely change how we maintain our infrastructure, making everything safer and more resilient. And speaking of cities, what if we use hyperspectral imaging to see how heat is distributed, to help us design buildings that are more energy efficient?
Yeah, and help us fight that urban heat island effect we hear so much about.
It seems like the possibilities are endless, and it's exciting to think we're just getting started with this technology.
It really shows that innovation can pop up in the most unexpected places, and it has the power to change our world in ways we can't even imagine yet.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into hyperspectral imaging, I hope you're leaving with a sense of wonder and a little spark of curiosity.
Keep thinking about this stuff. You never know, the next big breakthrough could come from anyone, anywhere. Maybe even one of our listeners will take this idea and run with it, finding new ways to use this amazing tech to tackle the challenges of the future.
And that's what the deep dive is all about, sparking those light bulb moments and encouraging you to see the world with fresh eyes, always looking for new knowledge and pushing the limits of what's possible. So until next time, keep exploring.